When we think of poetry, most of us have flashbacks of English class, reading Shakespeare in absolute confusion and being forced to write a haiku. But that's not the poetry I'll be talking about today. Today, I'll be unmasking poetry as resistance. I bet there's not one person in this audience that has not kept something from someone, or everyone, or maybe even the person you came here with. Maybe it's fear of rejection, of abandonment, of being shamed or looked at differently. What if I told you there was a place that existed where people would crown you like a queen or king, cheer for you, cry with you, accept you for taking a mic and spilling it all? Like the tea in the back of your cupboard that never gets brewed because it's too pungent or fruity. Hard to sip, but better to spill. That's the power of spoken word poetry or performance poetry, where you stand in front of strangers or familiar faces and tell them what's in your heart or on your mind through your voice. And it's totally okay. In fact, it's inspiring. It is resistance for anyone. The mom struggling through motherhood who just wants to complain without being seen as ungrateful. The guy suffering from depression in silence because society tells him to man up. The college student doing a degree they really don't like but are just doing it to please their parents. The heartbroken person who's been hurt by those who were supposed to protect them. The racial minority, me, the Muslim woman, who's faced a concoction of racism, sexism, and Islamophobia in Canada. Now that's tea most are not ready to drink, let alone spill. My resistance began at 16. Miss Foster, a small South African woman with big curly hair, who's actually here today, shout out to Miss Foster, said to our class one day, "Today, we're going to learn about spoken word poetry." I looked at her and I had no idea what she was talking about or how it would alter the course of my life. By the end of the year, I was performing a poem for the first time in front of an audience. My poem was called "The Power of Your Voice." I stood on a stage much smaller than this and said to the other kids, "Our ideas and opinions can be the solutions to the problems the older generations have caused and left us. And I will never let my voice die." It clearly hasn't. You see, growing up as a second-generation Canadian Muslim girl was not easy. On top of struggling with normal teenage problems in a broke immigrant household and trying to figure out adulting, I was living in a post-9/11 society where Trumpism later became a thing. I was constantly being bombarded by media messages that were telling me and everyone else around me that who I was wrong, backwards, medieval, oppressed by my own men, terrorist, submissive. 7 years ago, I was working at a fundraising call center, campaigning for girls' education in the Global South. I would call people all across Canada, and some of them were very open about their Islamophobia. I remember one call I made. I said what I usually say. "Did you know that there are currently 62 million girls that are not in school right now, and thousands will be married off before they turn 16? And they went like, "Oh, it must be the Muslims, right? It's the Muslims." Little did they know they were speaking to a Muslim woman who just started wearing the hijab. Poetry became an outlet for me to express all of my frustrations and opinions, where I could say things that empowered me and connected me to community, where I could say things that would normally make people uncomfortable, in not only a safe space, but a space where people would literally come up to me and tell me that I inspired them, and where they would snap for me. Let's all try the poetry snap. I would post my performances on YouTube and Instagram with only a couple hundred followers. One of my most popular poems is called Unapologetically Me. It led to the launch of my poetry career, and it went like this. I have a confession to make. How do I say this? I'm just so not sorry. I am unapologetically me for the faith in my heart that's expressed on my head, for the God that I worship, for bowing on a carpet spread. One day I got a call. Hey, Sumaiya, we saw your poem, Unapologetically Me, on your social media, and we were blown away. We'd love to have you perform at our Love Over Fear event. Me, really me, performing a poem in front of a couple hundred people, and in an event that was very personal to my life. It was a public gathering in downtown Vancouver after the Quebec mosque terrorist attack by a white supremacist that took the lives of 6 Muslims in 2017. I stood on a stage by the Olympic cauldron on a cold, rainy Vancouver evening. I saw a crowd, much smaller than this, of all types of people, Muslims, non-Muslims, holding up signs of love. I took the mic. My heart was racing. My voice echoed through the city buildings. In that moment, I was resisting, but not alone, with everyone else who could relate to me, who felt like their whole lives they had to apologize for who they were, who were afraid, resisting violence. I was putting out the flames of hate and ignorance with showers of poetry. There may be a lot of forces around us that keep our voices silenced, but for some reason, poetry resists them. Poetry is resistance. It connects me to you, so there is no us versus them. It reveals our humanness, the desire to be heard, to feel more than the hamster wheel of school and work. It's beyond online discourse and information overload that is disconnecting us further and further. It is spoken word poetry that unmasks our hidden truths with audiences that are ready. Believe it or not, I struggle to express myself with words. I know, how's that possible? But for some reason, writing poetry was just so much easier. I would suffer from really bad mental breakdowns where I would just bottle up all of my painful feelings to the point where it felt like they were all stuck in my throat. I felt powerless with all the things that are happening around me, in my life, in the world, that I couldn't control. Poetry for me is harnessing my power. It's knowing that no matter what is going on around me, I know I have my voice, and I will never let my voice die, and neither should you.